Antonio Gibson was taken in the third round and immediately started contributing to the Washington football team. He piled up almost 4.7 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns, and had 10 or more carries in over half of Washington's games. While Gibson certainly showed some nice burst and physicality with 2.6 yards after contact, he struggled with zone schemes early on, and to be blunt, the Washington offensive line was kind of a mess schematically. The individual players are solid. They got above average play across the line with Morgan Moses, Brandon Sheriff, Chase Rouillet, Cornelius Lucas stepping in for Jerron Christian, and PFF graded them highly, and they were an average run team by DVOA, but there were some concerning things on film for them. We'll start first looking at Gibson and his ability and growth as a runner through the season. Washington ran basically every run scheme you can imagine, and that presented a little bit of a problem both in their execution and in the ability for Gibson to grow and learn the system. This outside zone play is from week 2 against Arizona. In outside zone schemes, the running back has 3 steps to decide and 5 steps to cut from the start of the play. Those numbers are very important. The offensive lineman will also be taking 3 steps flat before climbing to the next level. The timing and pace of the running back and the offensive line needs to be in sync. Right from the start, that means the first step from the running back needs to be with their play side foot, because you're going to be cutting off of that outside foot on the 5th step. Some teams, like Washington does when they're under center, will use a drop step with the backside foot to get the timing correct. Different teams have different tracks based on small differences in how they like to run outside or wide zone, but generally the path of the running back is going to be at the outside leg of the tight end. The running back must stay on that track for 5 steps before the cut. It's a one-cut system that relies heavily on vision and decisiveness from the running back. The back must trust the system and get 4 yards. Already, Gibson is off to a bad start. He has a very small drop step with his back foot and an elongated front step. The center has their 3rd step in the ground as Gibson is just completing his 2nd step. When he's on his 3rd step, he needs to have read the first down lineman outside and determined their leverage. If they've sealed outside, he'll shift his eyes 1 lineman inside and again read the leverage. On his 3rd step here, the reads say that he needs to cut off of his center number 73. The backside of his line has successfully cut the defense in half. He stayed on his train tracks to the ghost tight end, but on his 5th step, he hasn't cut based on the leverage presented. He instead takes 2 extra steps before he cuts, which brings him too tight to the line of scrimmage to be able to cut off the center's block. He's read that the outside is sealed, but hasn't read correctly for the next defender inside. He tries to stick his nose in and get what yards he can, but it's the incorrect read, and it all started with the footwork at the beginning of the play. Because his steps are a little bit behind the offensive line, he's going to be ready to cut later than he needs to be. 2 weeks later, the footwork is much better. His 1st step is with the play side foot, and he plans to cut on his 5th step. His 3rd step is almost perfectly synced with the centers, and he's in phase for the run. However, on his 5th step, he hasn't shifted his vision inside quickly enough and is cutting at an angle that's too wide. He again should be cutting off his center's block with the defense cut in half. Now he's 2 steps too late on where the hole should be, and the defenders are starting to plug. He tries to bounce the play on the cutback, but it's already too late and the defense has rallied to make the play. In week 7 against Dallas, it all started to come together. His initial drop step back is more exaggerated, which helps him get in phase with the 1st step of the offensive line. That timing makes a world of difference. Now when he's on his 5th step, he's already decided and is in position to be able to exploit the flow of the defense. He puts his foot in the ground and reads that the edge defender and next defensive lineman inside have both sealed the outside. That means he needs to cut off his backside guard and get vertical. Since he's on his outside foot, he's able to cut cleanly, and you can see as he hits the gap that 1 extra step in that position and he's probably not going to be able to hit that hole. That 1 step difference gets him into the secondary and into the end zone for a score. That development continued through his rookie year and was really cool to see. As he got more efficient and comfortable with the steps in the Washington outside zone, he began to play with better vision and show his athletic ability. While the zone stuff got ironed out, the gap scheme from Washington was a bit of a mess the entire year. It doesn't exactly help your young running back understand where he needs to be and when he needs to be there. Washington is running a basic guard tackle counter here. On counter, the first puller, in this case the guard, will kick out the unblocked man to the play side. The second puller will then follow through that hole and up to the 2nd level to pick up the linebacker. The rest of the offensive line are working down blocks with the goal of pinning the backside linebacker and preventing penetration. That leaves the playside linebacker as the man the pulling tackle needs to block. Here, however, the tackle takes way too flat of an angle to be able to wrap through underneath the kickout block. As a result, he runs into the guard in front of him and creates a pile that kills the play and prevents Gibson from running the play correctly. Either his angle was taught incorrectly, or he didn't anticipate needing to wrap up at a sharper angle. Both are scheme and coaching problems. That kind of issue happened all year. Back in week 2 again against the Cardinals, Washington is running the same scheme but with their guard and their H-back. The guard is kicking out and the H is wrapping through. Again, the second puller needs to pick up the playside linebacker. However, there are some issues from the front side offensive lineman. The guard and tackle should be double teaming the 3 technique to the backside linebacker number 58. Once they drive that player to him, one of the linemen can come off to pick that player up. Instead, the right guard steps to the 3 technique to help push him onto the right tackle before trying to ricochet onto the backside linebacker. That just doesn't make sense for the scheme though. If they wanted to wall off from the 3 technique over, that's fine, but that means the guard should be kicking out the 3 technique or wrapping through. Instead, the pulling guard kicks out the defender outside the 3 technique. So now you've got 2 free linebackers and only 1 H-back available to pick up the playside linebacker. The lack of double teams to the backside linebacker leaves them free to immediately fit the gap and make the play. Anytime there were pulling linemen on gap scheme plays, Washington struggled, and it wasn't for a lack of ability from the offensive line. The assignments and the scheme were just flat out not very good, and Washington ran a little bit of everything to their own detriment. They weren't great at any one type of play and didn't have a scheme to lean on when they needed the tough yards. A lack of consistent scheme doesn't help your rookie running back, but Gibson showed promise and a quick ability to learn and mesh inside of a new system. He developed decisiveness, was able to consistently break tackles, and found ways to produce despite a lackluster scheme around him. The threat of the pass this year with Fitzpatrick will certainly help, but things need to be cleaned up to get the most out of Antonio Gibson. If Washington tapers down its run game and develops a scheme identity, some exciting things could start happening in Washington.